My name is Vivian Beaumont. I'm 35 years old, and the moment everything changed didn't sound like anything at all. It felt quiet. So quiet that if you weren't paying attention, you might have mistaken it for peace. Aaron once stood in our kitchen, leaning against the counter like he was rehearsing something, and said, "Maybe you need to step back for a while. Think about what you're risking." And I remember something inside me didn't break. It didn't even crack. It just stilled. Not anger. Not panic. Just clarity. At the time, I don't think Aaron understood what that silence meant. But I did. Before I met Aaron Hale, my life had a structure I trusted. I worked in operations for a regional building supplier. Systems, timelines, predictable outcomes. My days were built on things that made sense. If something broke, you fixed it. If something didn't add up, you followed the numbers until it did. I liked that. I depended on that. Aaron didn't. He was 32, worked in vendor relations for a medical software company. His world wasn't built on systems. It was built on impressions, conversations that stretched too long, dinners that turned into networking, late nights that didn't have clear explanations. At the beginning, I thought that difference made us stronger. Balance, we called it. We had been married just over 5 years, together almost 8. The house we lived in, it was mine before we ever met. My grandfather left it to me. I spent 2 years rebuilding it, piece by piece, before Aaron ever walked through the front door. That matters later. For most of our marriage, I thought we were steady. Not exciting, not dramatic, just steady. Saturday mornings on the back porch with coffee. Wednesday takeout from the same Thai place down the street. An ongoing argument about whether the guest room should become an office or stay empty. Normal life. And normal life is underrated until someone decides it's not enough. About 8 months ago, Aaron got a new job in Durham. More travel, more late dinners, more team events that somehow never ended on time. At first, I didn't think much of it. New jobs take energy. I understood that. I've worked long enough to know sometimes work doesn't stay inside office hours. But then things started shifting. Subtle at first. He became protective of his phone. Not obviously. Not in a way you could point at and say, there. Just small things. Face down on the table. Taking it with him everywhere. Replying to messages in the laundry room like the washing machine needed emotional support. If I asked who kept texting, it was always work. If I asked why work needed him at 10:40 p.m., it became something else. You're being insecure. That word started showing up more often. Insecure. Rigid. Suspicious. Exhausting. And because I'm not someone who yells, because I've spent years believing that calm is stronger than chaos, I let it slide. I told myself trust mattered. I told myself marriage meant not turning every uneasy feeling into an interrogation. Then came Charleston. Aaron told me his company had a 2-night vendor conference there. Said he'd be in meetings all day, dinners at night. Probably too busy to text much. That sounded reasonable. I told him to have a good trip. Saturday evening, I was home alone, standing on the deck, flipping something on the grill I barely remember now, when my phone buzzed. Fraud alert from our shared airline card. It wasn't fraud. It was a hotel charge. Same hotel he said the company was covering. But there was an extra night added. 2 dinner charges. A spa charge. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Didn't call him. Didn't text. Just waited. When he got home Sunday afternoon, he walked in like everything was normal. Travel bag over one shoulder, sunglasses pushed into his hair, already talking about delayed valet and bad coffee in the hotel lobby. I let him finish. Every word. Then I placed my phone on the kitchen counter between us. "Why did our card get charged for an extra night?" I asked. "If your company covered the hotel." He froze. Not confused. Not offended. Just still. And in that moment, before he said anything, I already knew. He started with the usual explanations. Billing error. Company reimbursement delay. A glitch. I listened. Then I asked, "Was Nora there with you?" And that's when everything changed. Nora Whitaker, his regional manager. Early 40s, polished, controlled. The kind of woman who called younger employees sweetheart like it was mentorship. I had met her once. She shook my hand without looking at me. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he said, "Why would you ask that?" And I said calmly, "Because you stopped denying there was a problem the second I said her name." That was the moment. He sat down, and then he started crying. I hate crying. I hate it when it's real. I hate it more when it arrives exactly on time. He said it wasn't what I thought. Said it wasn't an affair like that. Said it had become complicated, emotional, that he had felt overwhelmed, disconnected, seen in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. That word. Seen. Apparently 5 years of marriage, shared bills, shared routines, shared life had made me invisible. I didn't respond to any of that. I just asked one question. Did you sleep with her? He looked down, and then he nodded. Just once. Just like it was something small enough to carry. I remember placing both hands on the counter, not because I was angry, because it felt more stable than anything else in that moment. And then he said the line that stayed with me. If you really believed in forgiveness, you'd let this go. Not I'm sorry. Not I understand if you leave. Not I know I broke this. No. Straight to forgiveness. Like it was a tool, like it was something he could use. I looked at him, and I said, I do believe in forgiveness. He looked relieved for exactly half a second. Then I finished. But you're still leaving. He blinked, like the sentence didn't make sense to him. Vivian, that's not what forgiveness means. I nodded slowly. For me, I said, it means I'm not going to spend the next 10 years trying to punish you. I paused. But it does not mean I keep you in my house and call it healing. He stood up then, started pacing, said I was being cold, that people make mistakes, that couples survive worse, that if I ended our marriage over one night, it would say just as much about me as it did about him. I almost admired that. The speed. The shift. He cheated, and within minutes, I was being evaluated. I asked him if Nora's husband knew. He said that wasn't my business. I picked up my keys. It is now. That's when he panicked. Not for me, for everything else. Don't, he said, grabbing my arm. Don't blow up lives because you're hurt. I looked at his hand, moved it away. Aaron, I said quietly, you blew up this life before you got home. Then I told him to pack a bag. Go to his sister Lily's. Not forever, just for the night. I needed space, distance, silence that wasn't being rewritten in real time. He refused at first, sat on the couch, crying, calling me unfair. Then he called Lily. I don't know what he said, but 40 minutes later she was outside. White SUV, hazard lights on. Aaron left with an overnight bag, his laptop, and that look people get when they were absolutely certain you would chase them. I locked the door behind him, and for the first time in years, the house was completely quiet. The quiet didn't feel empty. It felt clean. That was the first thing I noticed after Aaron left. Not loneliness, not panic, just the absence of noise I hadn't realized had been there for months. Small tensions, unspoken questions, the constant low hum of something not adding up. At 10:14 p.m., my phone lit up. Aaron, please don't do anything rash. We need to talk with a clear head. Another message followed almost immediately. I was honest with you. That has to count for something. And then the one that mattered. Please don't contact my job. I stared at that last line longer than the others. That was the first sentence that sounded like the truth. Everything else? Framed, positioned, carefully arranged to make honesty sound like redemption instead of timing. I didn't reply. The next morning, I called an attorney. Her name was Dana Whitlock, mid-50s, navy blazer, the kind of woman who didn't waste words and didn't need to raise her voice to control a room. By noon, I was sitting across from her, walking through the timeline like it was a report. Dates, behavior changes, the Charleston charges, the admission. She listened without interrupting, just took notes. Then she asked the questions that actually mattered. Any children? No. House ownership? Inherited. Before marriage? She nodded. Has he admitted the affair in writing? Not yet. She gave a small, knowing smile. He will. That turned out to be accurate. By Monday afternoon, I had screenshots saved, account passwords changed, financial records downloaded. Not to punish him. To protect myself. Because I could already feel it happening. The shift. The version of events that would turn accountability into cruelty. That night, I didn't sleep much. But what sleep I got felt clean. 3 days later, I knew two things for certain. First, Aaron thought I would calm down. Second, he had already started talking. Lily texted me Tuesday morning. I know you're hurt, but marriage requires grace. No hello. No, are you okay? Just a message that sounded like it had been drafted and approved. I replied once. Grace is not the same thing as staying married to someone who cheated on me. Her response came fast. It was one mistake. He's under a lot of stress. Strong marriages get tested. And don't let pride destroy what forgiveness could restore. That last line felt familiar. It sounded like Aaron. Big words. No ownership. I didn't respond again. At 10 o'clock that morning, I met Dana again. She reviewed everything I had collected. Then she leaned back slightly and said, "You're doing this correctly." I almost laughed. Because it didn't feel like I was doing anything. It felt like I was just not unraveling. Wednesday afternoon, the email came. Subject line, "We need to talk about forgiveness." Of course it was. I opened it. 4 long paragraphs, carefully written. He said he had been spiritually lost, That Nora made him feel alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. That the hotel was a moment of weakness, not a pattern. That he came home and told me because he believed in us. Because our marriage mattered. And then there it was. The line Dana had predicted. I never denied that what happened with Nora was wrong. I read that sentence twice. Then I saved it. Clean. Clear. Useful. At the end of the email, he wrote, "If you can't forgive me, at least don't destroy me." That line sat with me longer than the rest. Because I hadn't done anything. I hadn't called his job. I hadn't contacted Nora's husband. I hadn't told anyone. I had asked him to leave for one night and hired a lawyer. And somehow, in his mind, consequences already felt like destruction. Thursday evening, my doorbell rang. I checked the camera first. Aaron. And Lily. She was holding a foil tray like it was part of a performance. He looked put together. Hair done. Soft expression. The version of himself designed to be forgiven. I opened the main door. Left the screen locked. Aaron lifted the tray slightly. "I made dinner," he said with a small, careful smile. "Can we just talk?" "We are talking," I replied. "Through a door." Lily rolled her eyes. Aaron started crying almost immediately. On cue. "I've had time to think," he said. "I know what I did was wrong. I know it hurt you." I said nothing. I don't think this should end everything," he continued. "Not if you believe in what we had." There it was again. Belief. Forgiveness. Concepts. Repurposed. I spoke calmly. "Dana will be sending separation papers." He blinked, like I had switched languages mid-sentence. "Separation?" he said. "Vivian, no, that's extreme." "No," I said. "What's extreme is sleeping with your boss and coming home expecting applause because you admitted it after a billing alert." That landed. Lily stepped forward then. Protective. Defensive. "You're humiliating him," she said. "You're speaking to him without compassion." I looked at her. "Tell everyone who's praying for him," I said evenly, "to keep praying. The paperwork is still coming." Aaron's face crumpled. "Are you really going to throw away 5 years?" he asked, "over one mistake?" I held his gaze. "No," I said quietly. "You threw it away. I'm just handling what's left." He cried harder. Real or not, I wasn't sure anymore. At some point, it stopped mattering. Before he left, he asked one more thing. "Can you at least promise you won't tell Nora's husband?" I didn't hesitate. "I won't promise you anything." That was the moment his fear became visible. Not about losing me. About everything else unraveling. They left not long after that. The tray of food still in Lily's hands. Untouched. That night, I got a call I wasn't expecting. His mother, Marcia. She had always been polite with me. Never warm, never cold, just controlled. "Vivian," she said, "Aaron told me there was an indiscretion." "That's one word for it," I replied. There was a pause. Then she asked very quietly, "Did he sleep with her?" "Yes." Another pause. Longer this time. "And did he really tell you forgiveness meant letting it go?" "Yes." Silence. And then, "I'm sorry," she said. "Not for him. For me." That caught me off guard. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Forgiveness is what guilty people ask for when they still want the benefits of trust." I didn't respond right away, because there was nothing to add to that. By Friday, Dana had everything ready. By Saturday, Aaron was texting from a new number. "Can I come by and get a few things before this goes too far?" I stared at the message. "This goes too far." I didn't reply. Dana did. 2.5 weeks later, the tone changed. It wasn't immediate. At first, it was subtle, like everything else with Aaron had been. The messages stopped sounding like speeches. They started sounding smaller, less certain. The first one came as a voicemail. "I miss my house. Not our house. My house." I listened to it once, then saved it. Didn't respond. A day later, a message came through Lily's phone. "Aaron says Nora wasn't the problem. She was a symptom." I actually paused at that, because it was almost impressive. The way language could be rearranged to make responsibility feel abstract. Symptoms. As if betrayal was something that happened to him. As if it had simply appeared. I didn't reply to that either, but the messages didn't stop. They multiplied. A man from Aaron's church group messaged me on Facebook. I didn't know him well, just enough to recognize his face. "Women of character choose restoration over resentment." I read it twice, then replied with one line. "Women of character usually start by not sleeping with their boss." Blocked him after that. A few days later, Aaron's friend, Kelsey, somehow found my work email. She wrote 3 paragraphs about how Aaron was doing the work. About how reconciliation was still possible if I stopped weaponizing silence. Silence. I stared at that word for a long time, because silence was the only thing in this situation that hadn't been manipulated. I forwarded the email to Dana. Her reply came 10 minutes later. Useful. Save it. By then there was a folder. Screenshots, emails, voicemails, call logs, camera footage, everything. Not because I wanted to use it, because I refused to be rewritten. Then came the flowers. White hydrangeas, my least favorite. Left on the porch in a glass vase with a note tucked beneath the ribbon. Forgiveness creates new beginnings. I picked them up, brought them inside, removed the note, washed the vase, and threw the flowers away. Because symbolism only works when both people agree on what it means. The turning point came on a Thursday, 5:40 p.m. I was still at work when the front desk called up. "There's someone here asking for you," the receptionist said carefully. "She's upset." I didn't need to ask who. "Tell him to leave." "I tried," she said. "He's already in the lobby." Of course he was. By the time I got downstairs, Aaron was standing there, eyes red. Mascara. No, not mascara. Just raw exhaustion. The kind that doesn't come from one bad night. From something collapsing. "He chose her," he said before I even spoke. I didn't react. "He said it was a mistake," Aaron continued, stepping closer, "that he's staying with his wife." There it was. The truth behind the truth. Not regret. Not clarity. Rejection. He wasn't here because he had rediscovered me. He was here because the other door had closed. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, "that you destroyed your life for someone who wouldn't even stand in it with you." He flinched, like the words had weight. "I know I was wrong," he said quickly. "I know that now. Isn't this where forgiveness comes in? Different tone. Same script. Just stripped down." I took a breath. "Dana has instructed that all communication goes through attorneys." His face shifted, from pleading to frustration. "Attorneys are making this cruel," he said. "Formal, cold." I held his gaze. Adultery made it formal. Security had started watching us by then. He noticed. Stepped back. But not before saying one more thing. "You're enjoying this." That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it was so completely detached from reality. There is nothing enjoyable about watching someone burn down a life and then blame the ashes. That weekend, things escalated. I was at my older sister Claire's house. Her daughter's birthday. Backyard full of balloons, kids running around, sugar and noise, and something close to normal. For the first time in weeks, I felt present, until Claire looked past me toward the driveway and said, "You've got to be kidding me." I turned. White SUV. Of course. Aaron stepped out, holding a gift bag and a casserole dish. I didn't move. Claire did. She walked halfway down the driveway and stopped him before he reached the house. "I just need 5 minutes," Aaron said. "Please." "For what?" Claire asked. "To apologize to everyone." That alone told me everything. He wasn't here for me. He was here for an audience. "I need them to see that I'm trying," he continued. "Maybe if they understand, they can help her soften." Help me soften. I almost smiled. My mother stepped out onto the porch then. She didn't rush, didn't raise her voice. She just crossed her arms and said, "Aaron, you need to leave." He started crying again, right there in the driveway. "I'm not a bad person," he said. "People make mistakes. I deserve a chance to fix this." My mother didn't move. "No," she said calmly. "You made it harder when you slept with another woman and came home asking for forgiveness like it erased anything." Claire turned away slightly. I could tell she was trying not to laugh. Aaron looked at me then, straight at me, in front of everyone. "If you ever loved me," he said, "don't let this be the end of our story." I met his eyes. "It ended in Charleston," I said. "We're just waiting on the paperwork." The casserole slipped from his hands. Glass shattered on the driveway. Red sauce everywhere. One of the kids started crying from the noise. Claire stepped forward immediately. "You need to leave," she said, sharper this time. Aaron didn't move. So Claire pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police." That did it. Aaron backed away. Got into the SUV. Drove off before anyone arrived. My mother watched the car disappear. Then said, just loud enough for all of us to hear, "That boy thinks remorse is a performance." Monday morning, Dana filed for a temporary no-contact provision. Not dramatic, not emotional, just documented behavior, repeated appearances, unwanted contact. It was enough. By then, even Lily had gone quiet. And for the first time since Charleston, Aaron had run out of versions of himself that sounded convincing. The divorce didn't happen all at once. There was no single moment where everything just ended. It was slower than that. Administrative, measured. Like dismantling something carefully instead of watching it collapse. By the time we reached mediation, Aaron looked different. Not physically, structurally. Like something inside him had stopped trying to hold everything together. The confidence was gone. The certainty. Even the way he spoke had changed. Less polished, less controlled. Fewer big words, more pauses. Reality had finally caught up to language. He tried one last angle. The house. He wanted equity in it, said he had built a life there, contributed to it, that it wasn't fair to walk away with nothing. Dana shut that down in under 5 minutes. Inherited property. Premarital asset. Separate title. There was no argument to be made, so he pivoted. Asked for a larger cash settlement instead. Said the emotional fallout had destabilized his work. That almost impressed me. The reach. The audacity. Dana's response was calm, professional, and final. What actually happened was simpler. Nora's husband found out. I never contacted him. I didn't have to. Truth has a way of moving on its own when enough people are involved. Nora was reported internally. Aaron was no longer an asset to his company. He resigned before anything became official. None of that had anything to do with me. But I could see, in the way he avoided my eyes, that he wished it did. It would have been easier to blame me, to turn consequence into cruelty. At mediation, he said something that almost sounded honest. I hope one day you understand, he said quietly, that what I did came from brokenness, not malice. I nodded. I already understand that. He looked relieved, for a second. Then I finished. Broken people still make choices. That ended the conversation. The settlement wasn't dramatic. He kept his car. I paid a modest amount tied to joint savings we had built together. He took his furniture, his art. The espresso machine he insisted had changed his life, and every decorative pillow in the house. I kept the house, my truck, my accounts, my quiet. It was, in a strange way, the most balanced division we could have had. A week after everything was finalized, Marcia called again. I'm not asking for anything, she said. I just wanted you to know. I told Aaron to stop using the word forgiveness until he learns what apology means. I didn't say much, but I appreciated it more than she probably realized. Work changed too. For months, I had been moving through my days like there was static inside my chest. A constant noise I couldn't turn off. Once everything was done, it disappeared. I started sleeping through the night again. Started running in the mornings. Started eating dinner at my own table without wondering what silence meant. Peace stopped feeling suspicious. It just felt normal. A few weeks later, I got moved into a senior operations role. Better salary. More responsibility. Ironically, easier than managing someone else's moral contradictions. And then, about 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I met Daniel Ross. He was a physical therapist, friend of a coworker, 33. Quiet in a way that didn't feel distant, just grounded. Our first date was coffee. Nothing dramatic. No lightning. No intensity. Just ease. At one point, I told him, half joking, that my last relationship had taught me something. That some people think forgiveness means you should hold the door open while they drag chaos back inside. He laughed, softly. Then said, that sounds less like forgiveness, and more like unpaid labor. I looked at him for a second longer than I meant to, because it was the first time someone had said it, without needing explanation. We didn't rush anything. No urgency. No performance. Just consistency. And that felt new in a way I didn't expect. As for Aaron, I still hear things. Raleigh isn't that big. He tells people I punished him for being honest, that I refused to fight for our marriage, that I turned forgiveness into a weapon. It's almost impressive, the way some narratives survive, even after they collapse. But the people who know the full story don't believe it. Not after the office visit, not after the birthday, not after everything that followed. Here's what I learned. Forgiveness is not permission. It is not access. It is not pretending trust wasn't broken just because someone cried hard enough. It is not keeping a door open for someone who only wants back in because their other option failed. I do forgive Aaron. I mean that. I don't wake up angry. I don't replay conversations. I didn't spend months trying to destroy his life. He handled that on his own. But forgiveness is about what I carry. Reconciliation is about what I allow. Those are not the same thing. He wanted forgiveness to erase consequences. I wanted it to mean I could let go without letting him back in. That's the difference. Between guilt and accountability. Between apology and access. Between peace and performance. And once I understood that, everything else became simple.